Hey everyone, this is Brian from the Tennis IQ podcast. Josh and I hope that you are enjoying the content and discussions that we put out week after week. If you'd like to support the podcast and help us to continue to produce quality episodes, please visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/tennisiqpodcast/membership. Currently, we have 3 tiers of support: the fan level at $3 per month, the supporter level at $7 per month, and the champion level at $20 per month. Benefits of joining the Tennis IQ podcast community include episode transcripts, participation in book club discussions, and access to monthly masterclasses with me and Josh. For more on these benefits of support, head on over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/tennisiqpodcast/membership. Thank you so much. And now, on to the show.
Hello and welcome to the Tennis IQ podcast. I'm Josh Berger.
And I'm Brian Lomax. And today we have the pleasure of speaking with Dominik Hrbatý. So Dominik is a former professional tennis player from Slovakia. He reached the semifinals of the 1999 French Open and achieved a career-high singles ranking of world number 12 in October 2005. Hrbatý is one of only 3 players, alongside Nick Kyrgios and Lleyton Hewitt, to have beaten each member of the Big Three, Novak Djokovic, Roger Federer, and Rafael Nadal, the first time he played them. During his playing career, he had over 30 wins versus top 10 players. In this conversation, we discussed Dominik's upbringing in the sport, the key role his father played in his development, how he learned to play his style of tennis, and his thoughts on being a coach. There are a lot of great nuggets of wisdom in this conversation, and I know, Josh, you probably agree with me. As I was listening, I was just thinking, wow, this is amazing. I can't wait till the listeners hear this episode. There's so much good stuff here, not only for players, but coaches and parents. And so we know you're going to enjoy this conversation with Dominik Hrbatý.
We are very excited to be joined today by Dominik Hrbatý on the Tennis IQ podcast. Dominik, thanks for joining us.
Hello, guys. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, we are very excited to have this conversation with you today, and figured we could start actually in the same way that we tend to start these conversations and interviews. Could you tell us a little bit about your upbringing and about your introduction to the sport of tennis?
Yeah, I started to play tennis at the age of 6. It wasn't my first sport. My first sport was skiing at that time. But usually in that time, I grew up in Czechoslovakia. So I was born in Czechoslovakia, and it was a communist country. So tennis was a sport that people played. We had the great tennis players at that time, like Ivan Lendl or Jan Kodeš. But still, it wasn't kind of preferred for that time, regime that we had, communist regime, because usually the tennis players, they traveled a lot around the world. They earned big money. So, and that wasn't kind of thing that you would like to see at the communist times. There, everybody had to be equal with the salary. Doesn't matter if you're selling in the market or if you are a director of the company. So it wasn't a sport that would be like huge. I mean, it was huge inside the country, but it wasn't kind of popular to travel, because only like really couple best got to travel. We had many great players that never get out of the country. It was only really like top 3, top 4 players at that time that they could travel. And but still, it was kind of a one-way ticket to get to better life and maybe see the world, maybe even get out from the communist times. Obviously, at that time I didn't know that at 1989 all of the Iron Curtain will fall. But still, I think one of the reasons was that why my father put me to tennis was to be able to maybe chase something bigger, some big dream. And also, I don't know if I would choose tennis myself, because I was never introduced, except skiing and tennis, anything else. But since my father played also a little bit of ice hockey, he didn't want kind of the sport where you depend of the teammates. And he wanted something that it's all about me. If I play well, I make it. If I don't play well, you don't make it. But it's all on you. So this was my start. I actually maybe at the beginning was leaning towards more to skiing, where I was actually a little better than in tennis. But in the end, tennis was 5 minutes from our house or our apartment, and for skiing we had to travel by car for 3-4 hours, always to the mountains, which was time demanding. My parents had to take off from the work, and this was way easier. So in the end, I stayed with tennis, and maybe it was a good thing. So I think I did pretty well.
For sure. So you stuck with tennis, and at what age was this, Dominik, that you decided that that's the one?
I think I did skiing and tennis until age of 10. After 10, I was solely and only focused on tennis. I was practicing a lot. It's a really nice story. After I quit with my tennis around maybe year 2018, 2019, it was like maybe 5-6 years after I stopped professionally. For a Christmas, my father gave me kind of like little box, and in that box was like diaries of every single practice of my tennis session, of my fitness, of my rehab, and all the tournaments I ever played. It was like really nice to go through it. And you would assume that at that age, maybe 8, 9, 10, or 11, you would be practicing maybe 1 hour a day or 1.5. But when I looked through the diary, I was all day at the tennis court, and that it's not that somebody would force me to do it. We just had a bunch of kids there that we were, either competing against each other, chasing each other, playing, small courts, big courts, tennis, playing doubles. Then we played like also a lot of times 3 of us. We called it America. One is on one side, two on other side, and fighting against each other and rotating. So yeah, it was time that I think I would never think that I would spend so much of the time on the tennis court, because if I don't remember the times at age 8, 9, how much I really was into the tennis. But when I look backwards, I was just playing a lot, and that also helped through my career, because at the age of 11, 12, I was ahead of some of my opponents, not just because I played big amount of hours, but also because I love tennis, and I was always trying to get better. And my father did lead me the way that my tennis had the potential. It wasn't just putting the ball back, but it was a tennis that you are in charge. You want to create the rallies. You want to bring the opportunities in. And he never. I mean, of course, as a kid, you make a lot of mistakes, and he never ever kind of gave me a hard time that I make too many mistakes. Actually, he kind of forced me, go for it, do it. If you miss, then you just repeat and try it again until you learn it. And that affected also my, I would say, mental side, my thinking, my kind of view of how I want to proceed and how I want to practice and where I want to be. And basically, try and error become part of my life, and I accept it as not something bad. I accept it as something that it's part of the process. And because of this, I never went mentally ever down, and I become a person who is highly positive and always looking up front, never looks back. If I ever go back on the tour, even now, and I meet my friends, from the times we played against each other, and if they say, "You remember we played at this tournament and it was this," and I go like, "No, I don't remember it. So for sure I had to lose." So on that, because of I was pushed. I was grown this way to have this kind of thinking. It helped me to always look not only ahead, but always thinking how I can change future and obviously learn from the past, but quickly forget about that because you don't want to bring yourself down or you don't want to question yourself too much because that is the thing that makes you feel bad, maybe sad, maybe depressed. And because of this, I was never like that. And also my father, when I was about maybe 8, give me, I don't know if I say it right in English, a motto. It's a thing that it's like a saying. And I had it for probably until I was 20. Above my bed, when I was going to sleep, I always looked at it. And it kind of said, you still had 1 point left in your match. And it's nothing lost for you as for opponent is, won. Or, I mean, I would translate this way. So your opponent was at the match point. You still didn't lose the match, but you could still have a chance to fight for your future until it's done that last point. Basically, you still have a chance. So this one of the things that I remember and I always had in mind when I played. And in reality, I won quite a few match careers out of match points because I always fight it till the last moment. And it's maybe because of this little thing, that influenced me so much.
Yeah, for sure. And it sounds like your dad, Dominik, was like a really big influence. Perhaps his experience as a very high level hockey player for Czechoslovakia played a part in that. Yeah, because
no, he wasn't. He wasn't. He wasn't a great hockey player. He was just playing in a local league. But I think he was enough smart to see how the pass is or what kind of pass to show me. And obviously, that pass I had to go through. Nobody else, and I had to go over it. But I had a good kind of vision, or I had a good like he showed me the right one, which one is the right one, and I believed in it, and I went through that path. Even I made mistakes or I made some errors, but still it was the path that was the right one. And if somebody asked me if I would change anything in my career, yes, I could do little changes that would make me a little better. But I always say I wouldn't change anything because it wouldn't be me, it would be somebody else. So I have no regrets. And yeah, I think you are right. He showed me, or I was lucky enough that he was maybe smart. Maybe he just had that vision, or maybe, I don't know if he studied it ever, or if he read a lot of books. I actually never asked him about tennis, but I guess so. And then he just kind of showed me, and I worked through that way. And I believe that whatever he tells me at that moment, it's right, and just try to follow it.
It sounds like that was definitely a helpful influence for you, both in terms of that slogan, that motto that you had, in terms of, sort of it's never over, right? It's never over until the end of the match. You can always come back in a sport like tennis, right? It's not like football or soccer or basketball where you can kind of run out the clock. It's one player starts winning points, that the match can turn. But I also really like that, the emphasis on the fact that, you're going to make mistakes as a kid, as an adult, as anybody, but that, rather than focusing too much on those mistakes, more the acceptance of it. That's part of the learning process. I'm curious, as you got older, as you started playing in, let's say ITF tournaments, national tournaments, international tournaments as a junior, and then later as a pro, how that mentality helped you.
I would say, let's go back to when I was 9, 10, because one of the things is that, yes, if you don't make mistakes, you should not think of it. But also, maybe it was a coincidence. I had my biggest rival, who was a guy who just was running on the baseline and putting all the balls back. And at that time, I think I lost like 3 times 7-6 in the third against him in a national level tournaments, like I don't know, like regional championships or state championships. And I always lost 7-6 in the third, and he always beat me on because I always made a mistake in the end. But I don't know if I was born with that or because of these matches, I was always kind of working harder and harder. I wanted to like, okay, next time I'm gonna do it, and I have to work a little harder. I have to do more of the exercises. Still, don't change the tactics. Tactics is right, but I just have to do maybe one or two little less mistakes. And we are talking for people who maybe has a little kids. It doesn't mean less mistakes that you do stupid mistakes. It's just that if you play active tennis, and especially if you're trying to be in charge in tennis, the kids doesn't have yet that, or they don't develop to that level that they would be playing 6, 7, 8 balls in a full speed. There is always some error of being a little late or not hitting it clean, and this is not wrong. This is normal at this age, and it takes. I mean, I would say this takes or this brings or you carry this mistake all the way to the age of 17, 18. There, maybe after many, many years of tennis behind you, you start to get a little more consistent, little more kind of knowledgeable what you can do with your shots, how effective they are, what you can achieve with this speed and that speed from this angle, from this position to that position, and this is something that even I made mistakes. I always it kind of actually made me more determined that I will beat this guy with this kind of game, and it actually changed. Then at the age of 12, I beat him first time, and I beat him 7-6 in the third, and since then I never lost to him, and my career kind of took off, way ahead of him, and he kind of stayed at the same level, just because he was better. Or many parents or kids, they want to be at the age of 10, 12, like really super great, but they forget, especially parents, they forget that it's not about being great now at the age of 10, 12, but it's being about great when you are 18, 19, or 20, because that's the ultimate goal, to be top 100, top 50, or top 10 at the world of tennis. And if you start wrong at the age of 10, it's really hard to change it when you are older. And then we coming to the question, your question, where as a junior, when I was 16, 17, because of a lot of practice, a lot of hard work, and a lot of balls, I got to the point where at age of I think at age of 16, after Roland Garros, I was a little injured. I didn't play for a month. But then I started to play men's tournaments. I tried. It was just a try. That time was called Satellites. It was not Futures. Satellite was 3 tournaments and then 1 final Masters, where if you got to you had to get to the 4th week, collecting like a circuit points, and then you could get the ATP points. But you have to play all these 4 weeks to get ATP points. And right on the first one, I was good enough to get to that Masters and made my first 4 ATP points. So by age of 16, I was on the rankings, and I started to play only the satellites. And I always say, how is it possible? And let's go a little back. Sorry. To the age when I started satellite. So my best ranking on ITF junior ranking was number 23 or number 24. I was never like really top 10, but I was number 24 at the age of 16, which I don't know if it's good or bad these days. Maybe it's good, maybe bad, but I don't think it was anything spectacular. I was one of the better ones, but I wasn't, worst ones. But then by age of 17, I started to practice with Marian Vajda. Vajda was a coach of Novak Djokovic for many, many years. And I was his actually first student. After the day he finished with his career, he started to coach me. We are from the same club. He just lived a couple blocks away from me. My father asked him if he would be interested to coach me. He said yes, and we had been together for 7 years. And by age of 18, as I was as a still junior, and I could play still junior tournaments, I was already top 100. I started with him when I was 360 on ATP in January. By August, I was top 100, and by October, I was 77. So basically, within 10 months, I jumped from the future levels, or that time satellite levels, all the way to the ATP level. And there is always a question that I always put to the kids, coaches, or parents. Is it possible that at age of 17, in 10 months, you got that much stronger, that much, faster, that much somehow better with a shot? Because everybody knows the process. The process in tennis to learn, it takes so much time. And it's a really slow process. You don't suddenly accelerate from 0 to 100 in a couple months. So what is the biggest difference in tennis? Why I become so good so quickly? And the answer is that when I started with Marian Vajda and him as my coach, first thing, when we went for a first tournament in February, that was a satellite, he put me and sit me behind the court and start to teach me how to read the game, how to look at the players, how to analyze them, what to see at which moment of the game, and what to focus on, and what they do right, what they do wrong. So it wasn't about me and my tennis. It was something about what's happening on the other side of the court. And because of that, I had to write down in the diary my like a tactics, and I had to do it before the match. Most of the players, they write down after the matches what they do wrong, what they did right, maybe they analyze. But I say it's too late, because it's not about, of course you learn from that, but you don't mentally prepare yourself for the match that you have to win, and you have to beat this guy. And by this, when I wrote it before the match, all down, it's like learning for a school, for an exam. I kind of had to go through my head and visualize the guy. I had to kind of see him, what kind of style he plays, how he grips the racket, how he gets to the ball, what he does when he's in the extreme position, like how he turns his shoulders, or how he takes his racket. So I kind of could see then, when I walked on the court, what he's going to do, and anticipate what he's going to bring, what kind of shot from certain position on the court, and it seemed like for me that, especially on the lower level tournaments, because these guys are not so skilled or not so gifted, that I was always ahead of them, not only in thinking, but being on the position on the court. So it was like, imagine that you play against somebody match, and you would stay in the corner and he has to run on the full court. It's almost impossible to lose, right? So this was what he did learn me or teach me. And then after the match, I had to go through again through the diary and correct if I did put something wrong before the match. Like if maybe I was expecting that he's going to play this forehand down the line at this moment of the match, and he didn't, and he did actually opposite. I had to correct it. But what it did, it was that through the match, because I knew I had to correct my mistakes, I could really react directly and very early on that change from his game. So if he played something that I didn't expect before the match, immediately I had a red light. If he did it one time, okay, maybe it's a coincidence, maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong. But then if he played it second time, I already know, oh, look at this. This is something, this is his habit. And I was really ready for any kind of change and any kind of tactical also things from his game. So this is why I just flew over the challengers and flew directly to the ATP Tour within 10 months. Still as a junior, I could enter to US Open Juniors being a top 100 on the ATP ranking and still play, a junior Grand Slam. I never went to US before. I was really main draw of US Open, but still I could do that, but we didn't have money for it. So it was different thing.
That's really great what you learned from Vida there, because I'm hearing a couple things. One, you learn to develop game plans and then to
Yeah.
commit to those in matches, and those were probably a huge advantage, as you noted, especially against some of the lower level guys who probably were not doing the same level of study and analysis of opponents. And then the post match piece is also another part of that learning process, going back and refining that plan and making it better for the next time. Um, People may not know, but you have 31 top 10 wins.
39, I think.
All right, Wikipedia said 31. You said that.
Yeah, I think 30. I think 39 is the right. I think I'm the third guy in the history that never been top 10, but beat most of top 10 guys. So like there is only, I think, one or two that has over 40. But yeah, I think it was 39. I saw this stat, or I counted this stat a couple of years ago.
Okay.
Maybe through the COVID or something. But maybe, yeah. I don't know if in Wikipedia is everything, but yeah, there is.
Yeah, and I guess where I was going with that is, I mean, that, as you said, that's a huge amount of wins over, legends really of the game. Agassi, Sampras, Federer, and Nadal maybe wasn't quite legend yet, but he was getting there when you played him. Do you think that process that you just described of committing to game plans, committing to learning after matches was a factor when you played some of these guys? Maybe also the motto that you had, above your bed, helping you to stay in matches more often?
I mean, definitely. But one thing to get to this model, or to this kind of way of being able to execute this tactical preparation, is that you have to know exactly your shots and ability of your shots, because there might be coaches who tells you play there, do this, but the guy doesn't have this technical ability to perform it. So you have to really combine the tactics with your ability of the game, what you like, what you don't like, and then also know about your game, where you're dangerous, what is your weakness, and maybe how to hide the weakness and bring up the good things. So it's a big combination of factors. But what it did the most to me is that, because I had to write down, I also started to visualize. Because if you write down, how are you going to write down? You have to kind of dig in your memory when you watched him, how he played, when you're writing it on the paper, and you have to kind of imagine what he did, how he did it, to kind of be able to put it down on the paper. And when I went for my first Australian Open in 1997, that was my first year as a should be in the men's. It was just past, the juniors. I was playing that year against Pete Sampras in last 16 as a teenager. But before I got to him, actually before Australian Open, I played very, very bad. I played terribly. I was just hoping that I don't get somebody tough on the first round and I will survive somehow the first round. So when we got there with my coach, with Marian, when the week before I played in Singapore Challenger, I lost their first round against my countryman, Jan Krošlak. So it was like a Monday. So on Tuesday we were flying, and Wednesday we had like 5 days to somehow fix my game. And Marian told me, like, there are two ways what you can do, or there are two pathways. And I think that was great about Marian, that he always gives you options. And that's why I think Djokovic was also so successful, because he doesn't push you to do something, but he gives you options and you choose. Because you as a player has to make that decision, and you have to believe that decision. So he told me, like, one way is that we get there, you take 1 or 2 days off, you just forget about tennis, relax, and we go practice 2-3 days, and you go for a match. Second pass is that we get there and we will work our ass off until you're gonna feel it. And obviously, based on my history, and as I told you how much time I spent on the court, I chose the second pass. Obviously, I didn't know I signed the Devil's letter. And so the next day we come, he wakes me up 6 o'clock. He sent me out for a warm up on the cricket field to run, it's like, I don't know, 15 minutes run, then do a little stretching, warm up, and then 15 minutes run back. But that time, obviously, it was a time in 97 where you had still Walkmans. I don't know, maybe young generation, if I say Walkman, they will not know anything about it. It was the tapes that you put in. And there was no iPods, iPads, so you couldn't run with something because even Walkman was so big that it was like a brick, and you don't want to carry it in your hand. So once I did these runs, I started to kind of imagine just to play virtual game, how I play against Pete Sampras. That I'm on the center court, he's serving, I'm returning. I did not only imagine like his shot, but I did imagine the linesmen's, ball boys, the court itself, how it looks, then the spectators and all that. So we played this rally, and some of the rallies I made simple, serve, he comes to the net, I put it under the legs, he comes, volleys, whatever, he finishes, or I make a passing shot. And some of the rallies I played just, this, you want to see these highlights of the tournament that we chase each other like crazy, and then I made the tweener and stuff. So I was playing these mind games, and then the stadium like erupt, like, ooh, and they go. So it was like, for me, a time that I would kind of dream, how can I get to the center court and basically also fulfill my dream, because tennis, it's all about to play on the big stadiums, and that one day you're going to be playing, you see it only on TV. And then you wanna in the end play on that court. You wanna play somebody big, and that's the ultimate, like best feeling of your career, that you can get on the big stadium and not only get there but also beat someone. And obviously, it was like a Wednesday, and I wasn't even sure who I'm gonna play the first round or where I'm gonna end up at the tournament. But I did it every day. We practiced about 4 to 5 hours a day. And after we got from practice, after 4 hours of practice or 5, he just sent me out to, do like a recovery run. So again, I dreamed in my brain, while running for 15, 20 minutes, like how I'm playing Pete and what we do. So then when the draw came out, I was playing Jason Stoltenberg. And Jason Stoller. Stoller was his name. I don't know the first name now. I think Jason Stoller. His name was Fred Stoller, So I played first match. I think it was a Monday or Tuesday, and I walk on the court. And I still in the mornings did some warm up. I continue about imaging Sampras instead of playing Stoller. But I walk on the court and I play my first ever best of 5. Match on the first round, and I win 6-4 in the 5th set. I went through. I started to play better, and then second round I had a day off. I played against Jonas Kulti. He's a Swedish guy. I played one of my fastest matches ever on the Grand Slam. I won like in hour 10, 6-1, 6-2, 6-1. Played fantastic tennis. And then third round I play Alberto Berasategui. The guy was a top 10 player, French Open finalist. And I win by walkover, because after like 3 sets, he came to the net and he just said, I cannot anymore. I basically grilled him on the court, playing my fast game, an active game, and he couldn't just handle it. And then suddenly I'm playing, on the 4th round, Pete Sampras. So I was 19, speaking English maybe, I don't know, I spoke some, but like, coming from communist country, and you learn all by yourself. So it was kind of funny English, and I know maybe 200 words. So the journalist asked me, so what are you going to do? I say, I'm going to beat him. So everybody laughed, and I say, I will show you guys. So I went, and I was actually 4-1 up in the 5th set, 15-40 for double break for 5-1. Then 4-all, I had a couple of break points. In the end, I lost 6-4 in the fifth. I mean, some of the rallies at the 15-40, he played, I think, ace and make some great shots. At 4-all, I made maybe a mistake that it cost me that match, that I was just waiting, playing through his backhand. You know, Pete never had the greatest backhand. He could play it. He was safe, but he wasn't hurting. At that moment when I had my break point, he just smacked it down the line, hit the line, backhand down the line, and I had no chance. And that also was a lesson for me later. I mean, after the match, when I was kind of going backwards through it. But I lost. Then I lost. I made some double faults at 5-4, lost the match. So I was really sad. But on the other hand, I was so proud of myself. And I was kind of expecting, you play number one in the world, first time Grand Slam, ending up on the last 16. My match was watching Phil Knight from Nike. There was a people from Adidas. There was also other managers. I got my first ever big contract, a closing contract, with money. And when I was in the locker room after the match, Vaida came, and I was kind of hoping that he's gonna, clap you on the shoulder and say like, "Well done, great match. Never mind, you go next match." And he just stormed there, and he started to tell me like, "How could you do this? How could you do that? And why you didn't go for this ball?" And I was like overwhelmed with his reaction. Went to the shower. I cried there for maybe 10-15 minutes. But in the end, I think it was the right lesson for me, because at that moment when I had that break point at 4-all where I didn't go for it and Pete went for it, it did teach me a huge lesson that if you play the guys who are the best in the world and you want to beat them, and maybe that's why I won so many top 10 matches, that you have to be the one to make the decision. If you have a chance to make the decision first, not only make the decision, but believe in it and go for it, because that's the only chance how you can beat these top guys. They are top guys because they are really good. They don't give you anything for free. They make minimum mistakes. They give you very little opportunities. And if you ever get that opportunity at certain situation, you just have to go for it. And if Marian wouldn't probably storm into the locker room and he would tell me nice way something, I would probably never ever remember it, because I would never pay attention to it. But because what he did and how he did it just affected me as a person. It was such a strong emotional moment for me that since ever after, whenever I played, I think I beat like 4 or 5 number ones in my career. And I beat most of the former number ones in my career. I think the only guy who I never beat was Lleyton Hewitt as a number one, or former number one. So because of this, I got to this kind of point where when I was older and I played somebody good, all the guys have been afraid of me. They never wanted me, to play. They always had a fear that I have this ability to beat them. And it's one of the things, that again, it's a mental decision or mental moment where you see yourself that you can beat these guys. So there were two great things that happened to me. One was that I learned how to visualize, and second, to believe in my game and do it until really the last moment, until you shake the hands. And once you shake the hands, you lose, okay, it's fine. But you win, there is always that little cherry on the top of the cake where everybody will come to you and say, what a great match. It was fantastic to watch you. Because if you play the guys who are on the top, nobody ever expects you to win. 99% of the people would say, it's okay, he's good. Anyway, we kind of knew you're going to lose, And this is what I never wanted to have in me, that I never want to calm the other people. And on the other, and the last thing is that we play tennis because it's a show. It's entertainment, and only with the big guys you can get really to the big stage, unless you are really at the top. And this is the moment where you should enjoy it, and you should kind of have the best memories of your life, because this is the reward of the all work and everything you did in your life. And that means that you do something well if you get there, and you should be proud of yourself.
Absolutely. No, I think that's a great perspective for everyone who's listening, right? Whether it's junior players or adults who are competing, I think, yeah, being able to leave a match, win or lose, feeling proud of yourself, feeling proud that, hey, I did whatever I could do out there, right? That doesn't mean I'm going to win every time, but and probably, that's not necessarily going to happen every single time. There might be certain matches that you look back at and you're like, you know what, maybe I could have done something a little bit differently. But I think, yeah, what I'm hearing is that, through the process that you put into it, you were able to put yourself in that position to feel proud of yourself, for these performances, and have and take down so many of those legends of the game. I know when I was looking, learning a little bit more, more about your background, and I think it's actually timely a little bit in terms of, Federer retired a couple years ago. Murray announced his retirement. Murray retired earlier this year. Nadal, just announced his retirement, will be retiring next month. And, obviously Djokovic is still playing, but the fact that you played all four of them at different stages of their career and managed to beat all four of them, I think is quite an accomplishment as well. I'm curious if there are any takeaways from maybe some of those matches, or anything you can share with us about about competing against all of them.
When I was probably 24, 25, Roger is, I think, 3 years younger than me. I was maybe 22, 23 in the time of around 2000. So I used to play with Roger a lot of doubles. We started to play, I think our first time was in Gstaad at the tournament in Swiss Open, where he was still as a junior and I had no one to play doubles with. So somebody from the tournament came to me and asked me, can you play with this young guy? You're going to get a white card and stuff. So I said, okay, why not? And since then, we become very, very good friends. We also practice a lot. We went also to some practice weeks. Like we went one time in LA where we stayed for a week and we watched 3 NHL games before going to Indian Wells. And also this was one of the things that through my career, that because this guy as a kid and that he's 18, 19, and then you meet him as a legend, that he's winning Grand Slam after Grand Slam and tearing up all unthinkable records that could be ever done, that can be broken. And so you learn that these guys are also only from flesh and bone. With Roger, whenever we practice, he never finished practice with me properly. He threw the racket over the fence. He hated losing. Most of the times, like out of 5 times, 4 times, he would lose against me any exercise. And he was like getting so mad. He couldn't control, his being angry and stuff, because he hated losing. But then you realize, you come on the big stage when they are best. And I played Roger when he was number 1. I think he had a winning streak of about 23 matches, and I beat him in Cincinnati in 3 sets. You just realize they're also only kids, or only boys, that they have their own fears and demons, and you just have to be patient and do your job and wait for your moment. Because anyway, in tennis it works kind of the way that I can say it also from opposite way. I was almost 7 years top 20, and many times I played the guys who are 80, 90 or below 100. And you come to go to play with these guys, and since you are at the top, you have a very high confidence. You know that this guy most likely is not going to beat you, so that's like walking on the court is already like 1-0, 2-0 for you. But in the other hand, if you play this guy and he suddenly is playing really well and he's holding up there, and suddenly it's 4-0, 5-0, you start to doubt yourself. These guys like Roger, Nadal, or Novak, they don't doubt themselves at 0-0 or 1-0 or 1-0 because they know that they are good and they are there because they belong. I mean, they should be there because they are the best than everybody. They are better than everybody else. But if you get with them to the 4 or 5-0, then suddenly that momentum kind of switches, and they can be also impatient because they know, oh, by this time I should already have win this match, or it should be decided, and I didn't take my chances, and suddenly it's getting close, and they give you chances, and you will see that they will make stupid mistakes that you would ever think that they cannot do or they should not do, but they do it, and then it's just your chance to, if you get to that second part of the match, then it's your chance to win, and you learn it also on yourself, because if you play guys who are weaker, or you should win with them very easy, and there are matches that you're struggling and you have to really fight hard to win, then you realize it should work also the opposite way. So you just have to be playing tactically well, be patient, be ready. You cannot take risks, or you can. I mean, you should play on the edge, and also you should take, I would call it, calculated risks. If you take a calculated risk, then go for it. But you should not take risks just because you feel like, oh, I'm getting pushed, or I'm getting a little bit more in defense than I would like to. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, very interesting. So, I mean, you're giving us a ton of like mental nuggets here for our listeners, and we really appreciate that. Can you tell us a little bit about, now I think you've transitioned to coaching. Is that correct, Dominik?
Yeah. I mean, now I don't coach because I'm more around my daughter, helping her achieve her dream. But yeah, I was for 10 years in coaching. I was a national Davis Cup captain of Slovakia 3 years, national coach 3 years for Turkish Tennis Federation, and I coached Tseng. He was a #1 junior in the world, and then Klijan, and helping a little bit Popirin. So yeah, I had some players.
Yeah, and so tell us a little bit about, because you were also, a very top level player. What was your coaching philosophy? What did you learn from Marian Vito? How did you expand on that? How did you basically work with players to help them achieve their best?
Uh, this is a tough topic because being a coach is completely different thing than a player. So I had to go also through the process of learning. I was really lucky that I started at the Turkish Tennis Federation. The way I say lucky, because if you are as a top player, you always think as a top player. You know that this is normal, this should be like this, you should play like that way, or this is a thing that it's normal for you. But for 99 of the other percent of the players, it's not normal. I mean, it's only you see it that way because you are good, but many of them, they just are not at that same level of the either mental stage or shots or technically there. So I had to really go, I don't say 2 floors down, but I had to go 10 stories down, like all the way to my beginnings, because Turkey, at Turkish tennis that time, was like the best player was about 1,100 or something on the ATP rankings. And many of the things that, from warm up to preparation on the courts, rehab, fitness, whatever, they didn't have a clue. So I got there a group of 8 kids, and I don't say I learned on them, but it kind of showed me that being a coach, first of all, since I had 8 kids, I have to approach everybody differently. That's very, very important. And then also I had to level down my expectations, because as a coach, you always want best for your player. You always want, him perform well. The best would be, winning every tournament. You would do, as a coach, you would do anything for it. you would die for that kid if you are really a coach with your heart. I mean, with a true heart. But it's not possible. I mean, you can only do as much as the kid has the ability. So then you have to like kind of explore them. You have to analyze them. You have to not only analyze how they play, but how they think, their behaviors, their hobbies, their sometimes even personal life. You have to speak to them about everything. You are kind of like I would say a father for them. You are not only a coach, but you are also, I think, more like a person who teaches them values for the life, values of many things that are outside of the tennis, and you are example for them how to maybe make the decisions, make also normal life. Sorry for my English. Normal life, like a moment that it comes. Sometimes they need to talk about their girlfriends. Sometimes they need to talk about their tennis, and you are for them as someone who they look up and they believe also in you. That's very important. So you cannot make a mistake in a lot of the moments. So you have to be like really, on one hand, careful what you say, but on the other hand, you have to be also their friend, but also you have to keep distance from them, not to get too close, so they still listen to you and they have a respect to you. And this is very tough. So I learned a lot about this at Turkey. I also, as I said, I learned how to coach different type of kids. So I didn't have one vision of the game. I had to kind of, even I played active and fast tennis and, staying on the baseline like Novak, I had to sometimes go in my mind and try to imagine how I would play if I would be a defensive player or if I would be a guy who spins a lot. So this is something that I think as a coach is mandatory to do, and it's something that you have to learn. It's no way that you ever. I mean, if somebody comes and he has maybe 5-10 years of experience of coaching and he tells you he knows everything, I tell it's a lie. He's not a good coach. But if you know that there is a guy who is 15-20 years and he says, oh, I don't know, I will try to do my best, I hope I can help you, this guy will think of it a lot. He will do his best, and this is somebody who you will know that he will in his free time spend a lot of time thinking about your game, how to improve you, and how to make your game work better, because it really takes time. And also what I realized with coaching, which I never thought before, because when you get coach, you want to learn everything, like at once. Like you get the coach, he tells you do this, you do that, but you don't know many times why he asks you to do. Many times he has some concept and vision, but you just do it because, like Marian told me with that analyzing, do this because it's good for your game, but you realize about that way later that it was the right decision at the right time. Because imagine that I would not be able to put the balls where I want, that I would have some technical error, and he would tell me, oh, we learn how to analyze and how to use the tactics, but maybe it would be too early at certain moment for me. And exactly at that age when he told me, it was a perfect timing. So you as a coach has to also understand when to teach what. And this is very, very important. So when I teach someone, or when I try to improve him, first at maybe first couple of weeks, I just go through his shots. I go through his game, trying to see how he plays, what his limits, and what kind of shot. So I learn about his abilities. And once I know that he's capable of receiving like a higher value or higher or better quality information, then I start to feed him with maybe something more difficult, maybe something more that is more tactical or analytical, because then I know that he doesn't have to, when we do exercises, then I know that he doesn't have to think of his game. Like I give you an example. When we played with Marian, many of the practices with my coach, like simple cross court, many of the players the coach says, okay, play 5 minutes cross court, warm up. But with Marian, we didn't do it this way. He said, whenever you play forehand cross court, you think and memorize where you play that ball from, what does it do to me, that ball, and what do you think where I get in the trouble. Memorize these situations and think only of this. On the other hand, I will tell you mistakes, technical mistakes, but you don't really think of them, but you only listen to them. And by me telling you a million of times, you automatically, unconsciously will get it. So I give always example. If I tell someone 1 million times that you are an idiot, then I believe this guy, if he hears it every single day, that he will start to think that he's an idiot, right? So by this concept, I felt like I got improved even better because I didn't have to think of my shots, but we kind of, I would say, boosted my game to much quicker or much better level because I was then, as I said, I was able to realize which shot is effective and which shot is not effective. And that's the most important part in tennis. It's not about when you walk to the match. It's not about how good technically you look or how if you can play that forehand cross court. But that forehand cross court is useless when you play to the better shot of the opponent. Or if you, it's useless if you play it at the spot where it's not hurting your opponent, or it's useless if you play it with amount of spin that is exactly what the other guy likes. So this is something that I learned as a player, and then I try to also teach the kids, but obviously teach the kids that they have been ready for this kind of information. If he is not ready and he doesn't know how to properly hit the forehand, then I have to do 5 steps back and we have to first fix the forehand so he's able then to be able to use the tactical advantages of the game.
That I think there's a lot of good information there, and I think that's interesting. That you had this journey as as a former top player, and then going to start coaching, but you said, okay, I have to not start again, but I have to start learning again, right? I have to I'm working with these players, let's say from the Turkish Federation, that are let's say outside of the top 1,000, and there's different, it's a whole different ballgame, different limitations, different styles of play. Everything is different. So I'm curious if through your journey as a coach, both with the Slovak national team and the Turkish national team, and you mentioned Martin Klizan and Alexei Poprin and some different people. I'm curious if there's things that you learned from that journey of coaching both the different teams and different players that maybe that maybe you wish you knew when you were competing.
I mean, it's different era, it's different time. These kids now growing up, they start with the red balls, orange dot balls, green dot balls. I mean, in my time, I started with the wooden racket, which was crazy heavy, and regular balls. So for me, the shot look was like I was happy if I played over the net and I played, somewhere deep, and there was no kind of abilities to curve that ball or to play, drop shot or play, like something that would be, these days, that time I would call it being gifted. But these days you don't call it gifted because of these advantages, these kids have way more variety of the shots. They are more flexible to play all court game. They are more, I would call them, they're more playful. They play a little more around than we used to. So yes, if I would have this ability, that would be first thing I would learn. Then I would say I would not be my best ranking 12, but I would be maybe top 5 with my ability of analyzing and selecting shots at certain moments that I know I was effective. But The biggest surprise for me, or the biggest shock, was that all this tactical and mental preparation I was doing for my matches, it was that I would say 90% of the players, they don't do it. And we're talking about top 100 players. I thought when I was playing that everybody is doing what I do because they are so good. So they do it the same way as I do. I never thought they might do it different way. But then when I was coaching and I had national team or Klizan or others, they didn't do it. They had completely different approach of the game. And then I realized that my biggest gift in my career was my brain, probably. And I was also trained for it. So I also forget one thing to mention. When I was young, and I think this is very, very important, if you go through the really top players like Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, they are all very, very smart persons. It's not that, not that you would talk about the astrophysics or, some atomic energies, but they are smart the way that they train their brain through the school. So it's very, very important, especially for kids, to go to the school, because it's not only a process of learning what you learn, because you might not need 2+2 in a tennis court, but you still train your brain to be able to work and to have a larger capacity to memorize, analyze, and then, process. And this all you learn in the schools. And I don't say I was forced from my side to finish, because I finished my high school when I was 21, since I was already so much on the tour as a young kid. I was going, one semester in 1 year, and I was very happy to finish it. But it still pushed me and trained my brain to be better and more smarter on the way to filter the information, to analyze, to realize what kind of information is for me good, and also to remember that, let's say, in the past, what I learned might work that time, but it might not work this time, and I have to add new things to it. So being smart, like I can call it like having a trained brain. It's very, very important in tennis, because if you go there is exceptions in tennis, and there will be always, like, there are talents from the god like Nick Kyrgios has, and he goes by feeling, and he just probably whatever he feels he just do, and he always do it right. But it's 1 in a million, and you cannot go with the chances of 1 in a million. You have to go with the math. Like I always say, what 80% does of the players, then you should do it, because this is the right way, and that the consistency and just being simple gives you the biggest advantage of all that you can get.
Yeah, very good. So now you're not coaching, working with your daughter. What else are you up to, Dominik, now that you've retired from all of these things? And what's a typical day in your life look like, if there is one?
Yeah, these days I do little coaching here in Florida at West Palm, at the Palm Beach on the island, but it's more like giving lessons in a time that my daughter doesn't practice. So usually it's, giving her support. I'm spending most of the time with her from, let's say, if she needs help for the school, I bring her to the practice because golf is so time demanding. So I bring her, spend the time with her, 3-4 hours. So, the best possible scenario is that I also listen to her coaches. So I learn also about what she does right or wrong, trying to get that motion in my eyes and brain, so in case we are alone, that I can at least give her little information or help that, it might be this or this, because, I see how you take the club. And then, of course, it's a fitness, bringing her then to fitness, bringing her to physio, and then getting home and all that. It's just like almost a full-time job. So what basically my father did for me, that from engineer architect, he changed his job being secretary in the tennis club and giving me all that, background support. I'm trying to give her and see where we will see where it goes. But I never say it's a wasted time. I always so grateful because I'm the most happier person that I can spend every single day with my daughter before she's gone from home. And I don't think any money can pay that, because many times I was actually, I don't say lucky with the tennis. I earn enough money that I have a freedom of choice what I want to do. But I have this ability, so I'm using it. And then, I mean, how whatever she does, or however which path she chooses, it's up to her. And I'm just enjoying the time around her before she's gone.
That all makes sense. That all makes sense. Well, I think that's a nice, maybe a nice, ending point in terms of, sort of things coming full circle a little bit, right? We started with, you talking about your upbringing and, your career and lessons learned and coaching, and now, talking about your daughter and, helping her achieve her dreams. Wanted to see if there's anything else that you wanted to add before we wrap up. Any maybe last thoughts? Anything else that you think that people would be interested in hearing as well?
I don't, there is there is no there is no secret in tennis. Like, if I want to put anything out, don't look for something special, because many people look for special things, special, coaches, or some super ideas that might change your career. It doesn't exist. Being, working hard, doing the things simple and effective, that's the best way what you can do. And then be patient, because tennis is a sport that it's a long-term sport. You should, or you will never achieve what you want to do in a year, not even two. Many times it takes 10, 15 years. So whatever it's your goal, it takes, at the age of maybe 10, you have to have a vision how you want to play at the age of 20, 23, and you should chase this. You should chase this dream and never change that path. Because if you just changing things because it doesn't go for 1 week, 2 weeks, or maybe 3 weeks. Obviously, you have to be smart that why it's not going, but never change your vision how you want to play as the adult, and try to chase that dream and just work hard. That's it. There is never easy way, and I don't think I'm the first one saying it. There is millions of people saying that, and it's always true. There is no shortcuts.
But I think you may not be the first one, Dominik, but I think it's a fantastic message to reinforce, because there are many out there who may not hear that message enough. And I think that's a great way to, kind of end our time with you. So thank you so much for joining us. I think this was a tremendously rich conversation, and really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you very much, guys, for inviting. It was really a pleasure also from my side.
Well, that was such an awesome conversation with Dominik Hrbatý, and thanks again, Dominik, for joining us today. I would say, I think a lot of things stood out there. I mean, first of all, his background, his experience is obviously remarkable, and some of the accomplishments that he's had in his career and wins and all of that. But I would, I think the thing that stood out most to me was really the process that he went about. Just through some of the work that he did, both in terms of earlier with the influence of his father, and then a little bit later with the influence of Marian Vita for many years. The work that he would do and sort of analysis that he would do for matches, both before and afterwards. The pre-match time, in terms of really developing a game plan, really trying to see through his through that work that he would do with Marian, in terms of developing a game plan, thinking about how he wants to play, trying to see things through his opponent's perspective as well. But also afterwards, right? Also afterwards, being able to really go through that analysis piece, really trying to learn from experiences, make adjustments. And he talked about that being, one of the keys to his rapid climb into the top 100. But he also talked about his brain being, maybe his biggest tool, his biggest weapon out there on tour. So I thought many parts of the conversation were really interesting, but I think that piece really stood out to me. And I would say he also echoed a lot of the same sorts of sentiments that we talk about in many of our episodes. So yeah, I thought it was really an excellent conversation. And I love to see how that piece of his process of how he would approach matches really seemed to be a difference maker between him and many of his peers.
It did also remind me, Josh, of our conversation with Bob Litwin and how he noted something that he felt distinguished him from perhaps others on his journey was the ability or willingness to write about his matches afterwards. That, again, the learning process. So I think that it was interesting that Dominik noted that he figured everybody's doing what he's doing, and then it really turned out that most people weren't writing about the game plan and the reflection piece, and so that was key. I think with that and the idea of a game plan, and also Vida really teaching him to look at the other side of the net, really about how to play the game. And I think in some respects that's not as well taught in tennis as it should be. There's a lot of stroke production technique that goes on, but really learning how to play the game. And then the next level of that was, okay, this guy had so many wins against great players. How do you do that? And he mentioned the idea of, when you're in those positions and you're playing these great players, you have to play your game. You have to go for it in these big moments because they're great because that's what they do. And so you have to really take the same kind of calculated chances, good decisions, but to commit to your game. And I think we both work with a lot of players who get very focused on the result at the business end of a set or a match, and it begins to change. It corrupts their decision making and how they play. And therefore, maybe the more experienced player comes out on top in that situation. We have to be willing to play our game all the way through the match and learn from it. And that's why he developed a reputation amongst top players as someone they didn't want to play in a big tournament, because he really had the ability, truly, to beat anybody on any given day. And you look at the players that he beat all of the top guys, except I think he was, like you said, 0-3 against Lleyton Hewitt. That was it. Everybody else he's got wins over, and that's not by accident. And I think it ties back to what you said, and then him also really playing his game and going for it against those top players. So, well, we hope everybody enjoyed that conversation. And again, thank you to Dominik Hrbatý for joining us. That's our show for today. Thanks for listening. For more on today's episode, please check out the show notes. If you have any feedback or questions for the two of us, please email us at tennisiqpodcast@gmail.com. Also, if you're enjoying the content that Josh and I discuss on the show, please rate and review the podcast so other tennis enthusiasts can find it more easily. Additionally, to be notified of new episodes, please subscribe to the show on your podcast platform of choice, including YouTube. You can also check us out on Instagram. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/tennisiqpodcast/membership, where you can learn about the benefits of being part of the Tennis IQ podcast community. Thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon in our next episode.